This computer. Okay. Hello, everyone. And I guess good afternoon, because I'm on the East Coast and Joy is on the East Coast. I'm Carly, and I'm host of the Inform Forum on YouTube that has about maybe 10 subscribers. So subscribe, because I do a lot of videos on there. No, I don't. But sometimes I do a video when I feel like I have something to say, and I'm here today with Joy Marie Mann of I'm just gonna let you do you.
So I have a show called Savage Joy, and it's with the organization Real Progressives. And basically, I interview a lot of candidates, activists, public figures, things like that.
Cool. Well, thank you for doing this with me today. So I wanted to talk about, so obviously the State of the Union was this past week, and I think fortunately or unfortunately, there's still a lot of talk about it and a lot of discussion about, from better or worse, what Trump said. But I think there's actually less discussion about what he said, because I don't think it was the most controversial point of the night, as crazy as that sounds.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of talk about Stacey Abrams' talk and Senator Sanders, and there's a lot of controversy around around their talk. And I think controversy around Trump saying socialism, which was awesome, by the way, and how like certain people were clapping and certain people were not. And then obviously there's Nancy Pelosi's clap, which was, I'll admit it, fun to watch. But it still doesn't mean that she's this amazing hero.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me at least, I see a trend that is kind of starting to bother me about myself included somewhat, but about people paying too much attention to identity and not enough on policy, and even more so, too much focus on appearances and not enough on facts. And I just want to bring things back to the facts, which I care a lot more about than I do like appearances and everything else. I mean, this is kind of odd, but maybe, I don't know. But I just want to bring that back to the forefront because I think it's important to talk about. I don't know. So I guess where's a good place to start? I'm not even sure. I'm proud of like so many things.
Well, how does it make you feel when you see people, talking about identity politics on a thread that's about the issues?
It pisses me the fuck off because the issues, all right, let's say you're talking about, I don't know, Medicare for all, right? And then people say like, oh, we should support Kamala Harris because she's a black woman that supports all people, or she's the new Hillary Clinton, she's gonna be president, she's gonna break the glass ceiling or whatever. But you have to remember she actually denied trans women in prison the right to their hormone therapy or their surgery. She denied that to them. She said that kids were truant and locked up the parents. I think that's correct anyway. When she was it attorney general or district attorney? I think attorney general.
District attorney.
District attorney. Okay. And I guess that doesn't really say like someone that's like fighting for all people. And I'm on Medicare for all. She backtracked already anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't like the identity politics argument because it presupposes that you're not focusing on policy. And I feel like when people talk about identity politics, it makes people like not focus on policy much and kind of like make it seem like people are okay with like taking compromises on policy that we shouldn't really be taking compromises on. And for me, like Medicare for all is a big no. I don't compromise on that. You support that or you don't, and I don't support you as a result.
Hmm?
And like it's ridiculous how like when you say something like that about someone, then they say, oh well, then you're racist. I'm sorry, Ralph Northam, is he racist? Is the lieutenant governor of Virginia racist too? I mean, last time I checked, they were.
Well, the people who are saying you're racist for criticizing Kamala are the same ones who voted for Hillary Clinton, who had slave labor in her home, which she admitted in her book.
Mm-hmm.
And, thought it was totally cool. She called, she said super predators, bring them to heel. Everybody knows damn right well that was about people of color. She shamed a girl who was trying to speak with her when she was, she was saying, she was bringing up questions to her when she was at some event. And Hillary literally got up in her face and was like, well, why don't you run for something? Or when the young lady went to her one event and it was like a $250 ticket type thing. She paid to get in there and she had a sign that said something about super predators, and Hillary cracked up and had her escorted out.
Right.
And what about the time when she said to the other young lady and gentleman who said, well, maybe I just won't say that Black Lives Matter. Will that make you happy? Very condescending, very ignorant. Her hot sauce comment. I mean, she is so blatantly racist. Blatantly. She does not even try to hide it. There have been countless other incidents, and they vote for her, which is okay, and they defend Kamala, who has a tangible history of hurting the Black community in California. And there are so many people of color who are never Kamala. So as far as, do you ever notice how a lot of the people that say you're racist for, criticizing Kamala are white? They are white.
That honestly, all of the criticisms have been happening by mostly white people to me in the
absolutely, which is like
blows me away. That's not to say that like critique from a Black person saying like I'm racist won't impact me, because that has impacted me, and I have been called that by Black people, and I hear those calls and I try to like say, okay, maybe I approached something in the wrong way, or maybe something didn't come out the way that I would, or with the message I was trying to get across, and that's fine. And that's where you clarify yourself. But then the other person should be like, oh, okay, I understand what you're saying. You didn't mean to come across that way. But I think a hard thing, so like, I think you and I both love Senator Sanders. We love him. And a hard thing for us to think about is sometimes he doesn't always have the best wording with things when it comes to race issues and maybe even slightly gender issues. I can't think of any examples, but I think it's important that we need to like figure out a way to like feel like people of color, regardless of if they're Muslim, Indian, or Black, or any other identity like Puerto Rican or Mexican, or I can't think of any other identity right now because I'm feeling stupid. But, like, we need to figure out a way to bring those people into this movement, regardless of if Sanders runs or if he doesn't run. I think he's going to run. I hope to God he's going to run.
I really hope so.
I'm getting frightened, personally. But, I want to make sure that we can bring those people in somehow. And with, like, people being upset, like, about Senator Sanders' State of the Union, which was, by the way, after Stacey Abrams' State of the Union, and actually she did a reasonable job. It was very milquetoast, but
I thought it was absolutely awful.
there was nothing policy, like, based, but, like, she at least didn't have, like, the visible, I don't know, dry lip syndrome of Joe Kennedy. But, like, it was pretty boring and banal, but
she didn't talk about Trump. She talked about herself. I mean, this was supposed to be a clapback to Trump. Like, dude,
right.
You're racist. You're an idiot. You're hurting our country. She had a really good opportunity, especially as the first Black woman, to give the response. And I thought it was awful. Furthermore, she works for CAP, which is Neera Tanden. So Neera Tanden is vehemently against Medicare for All. They fight against it. They take huge fossil fuel money, things like that. So she is representing them while she's up there. So I didn't
that was a point that I got horribly attacked on when I brought that up, that she worked for CAP, but I was like, it's true. Regardless of or not she's trying to change the organization for the better, it's still a fact that she does work and is working on behalf of that organization. And while her speech or whatever response was kind of boring and banal and not really memorable at all, it was still, that could be why it was very milquetoast. She couldn't say what she really wanted to say. She couldn't call out things the way she wanted to call them out. And honestly, I kind of bring it up to the fact that the leadership hired her to do this response because one of two things: she works for CAP, and she's a person of color that almost won an election in Georgia as a Black woman. Does me saying that make me racist? No, it doesn't, because there's context. But I think, like, that's something that people in the movement that are white that have to do when they're talking about people of color. And it's just really important to have that context, because without that context, there's no base for that claim. And it's kind of like, you kind of sound like a Bernie bro.
When in actuality, I have a whole, alliance on Twitter of Black women for Bernie. Mm-hmm. I have countless people who follow me, who I follow, and they have Black women for Bernie in their Twitter follower name, and they are constantly saying, knock it off. He's not racist. He's been fighting for people of color for 40 years. Knock it off. I think a lot of times, especially the white women, disregard the fact that when he's talking about Medicare for all and single mothers and, affordable daycare and, higher living wages and stuff, this affects people of color as well. This helps everyone. This is promoting humanity as a whole. Whereas, yeah, cool, let's have a first Black woman president, but she doesn't give a shit about you. Mm-hmm. So why does that supersede action to lift you up? Action to make your lives better? Why? It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
if you want the first Black woman to be hated by so many other African Americans, you want that setting the precedent. I don't think you understand the fact that that is going to be a huge detriment to any other women of color who run in the future. They're going to use Kamala as, you know, the example. Look, we don't want to, you know, elect another African American woman because look, she's a cop. She throws people in jail. She let people sit in jail, even though there was plenty of evidence to let them out of jail. You know, things like this. That's really who you want to represent?
Exactly. Yeah. And on some level, that's actually that's how even Fox News talks about Obama when it comes to like all these like immigrant families being locked up by Trump, because I don't know why I just use quotes there, kind of, because they're actually locked up in ICE concentration camps, because they're essentially concentration camps.
Essentially,
yeah. Well, the right brings up all the time, Obama did this too. Was that okay? No, it wasn't okay, but the context there is different. It's still not okay, but the context there is different. And people, I mean, I'll be the first one to say, like, I wasn't really that woke when Obama was in office, and
me either.
My trajectory to the path of being a progressive is very different than most people. Like, I remember there was one episode of Fox and Friends. Yes, I used to watch Fox. It was Fox and Friends in the morning, and they were talking about a lamp and furniture, and I'm thinking, how the fuck is this news again? Like, and then I just started to wake up, and I like discovered certain things, and I'm like, huh, these things are making me think like an actual person, you know, instead of I need a lamp. But what was my point? God, I'm awful at this today. But I think so. Like, the right brings up Obama and his bombing of different countries, and then they talk, oh, well, Trump's bombing the same countries. Who cares? We care. I care. That's why I ask questions of, like, people say, like, well, do you support BDS of Israel as a Jewish person? And I'm not Jewish. I was talking to a Jewish person. Do you support BDS of Israel? And then when they call you anti-Semitic for asking the question, no, that's not me being anti-Semitic. That's me asking if you care about human rights and dignity and the right to actually eat and live and have light during the day. Because people in Yemen literally do not have light. And I think even as of this week, we like shut off aid to people in Yemen. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. Like, because when they bring up that identity of being anti-Semitic, because it is an identity, like, that brings the focus of the conversation to an identity instead of a policy issue based, and what's actually happening there based. Because I understand, at least basically, what's happening there. We're basically depriving them of the right to live. Well, and Israel is, but really we're funding Israel and Saudi Arabia to do that. But that doesn't mean it's okay. And that doesn't mean that we should support them. We can still like the country of Israel on some level. I don't. But we can still like them and be proud as a Jewish person and say, like, it's not okay to deprive a country or people of the right to live.
Well, I think, you know, something that's really, and I wasn't naive to it. I know that some people have always been very anti-Semitic towards Bernard, and I'm noticing it more and more, the amount of Democrats who have been blatantly anti-Semitic in the past few months is just mind-blowing on social media. First of all, stop telling him, sit, Bernie, sit. Okay, this is a man who lost his, not distant relatives, but his relatives in the Holocaust. His father came from Poland. Like, this is a man who literally lived losing his relatives. And you are telling him, sit, Bernie, sit. Or, you better not run, things like that. And then there are things where it's like, you old Jew, and things like that. And I'm just like, holy shit. Like, you're trying to say, that's why I was like, I made that post the other night that I was like, if Bernard speaking after her is racist, then why is Kamala speaking before them not anti-Semitic? Like, why is that not the same thing? Like, first of all, to me, and this has nothing to do with my support for Bernie, because I would have the same exact reaction. Speaking before Stacey is way more disrespectful in my mind. And I would feel that way if it were Bernie too, because she's trying to upstage her. First of all, how the hell do you respond to something that hasn't happened yet? How? That makes no kind of sense. And
I mean, it's like me responding to a hurricane that's happening in August in New Jersey now.
And I heard her speech was awful. I can't even handle her, so I didn't watch it. But
I tried.
I mean, she just disgusts me so much. She really is Hillary 2.0.
Given the fact that she's hired former Hillary aides in her campaign.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you do that, your campaign's dead.
You literally are hiring people who helped lose to the most hated man alive.
Yeah.
I will be 100% honest. I do fear that she very well could get the nom. I do. As much as many people who loathe her, I think she is a threat. I really do. I also think Beto is a threat. He's talking about running before the end of the month.
Yeah.
The interesting thing will be the middle-aged, middle-class or upper-class white women who have been calling us racist for not supporting Kamala. It will be interesting when they drop Kamala like this to go to Beto. Because I'll be like, you racist? Why are you suddenly dropping her? Because they will go to him, and I do not understand. And
then for that matter, like the whole, so until Bernie gets in the race, the person that I'm supporting is Tulsi Gabbard. And I've been pretty upfront about that. And I know that there are issues with Tulsi Gabbard. I'm well aware of them. And I understand reasons for not wanting to support her. So let's say, like, Kamala Harris, like, the last three people in the race in, like, I don't know, May, April of next year are Tulsi Gabbard, Elizabeth Warren, and Kamala Harris. And all of the white men had dropped out. So then let's say Warren gets out and endorses Kamala, because we all know she'd endorse Kamala.
Absolutely. No doubt.
So then, are people racist or sexist then for not supporting Tulsi over Kamala? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's just...
It's tons of hypocrisy.
It's not about race. It's not about gender. It's how you're going to help the person in Palooza, Kansas. And I made Palooza up. But how are you going to help that person? Because you have to get that person out to vote. And like it or not, Tulsi actually brings those voters in. Warren, I don't think she would.
Look at her. Yesterday I was dying because she did that official announcement. Yeah. First of all, she did it at a known location of where socialists actually rallied and how the rose came to be and things like that. She did it specifically at that place. I've spoken with a number of Indigenous peoples who are just blatantly disgusted and offended. I'm going to be having two on to go over just how egregious what she's doing is to them as a people. Right. Also, yesterday, so I saw her, like, this is my announcement. I posted a screenshot, 121 likes after 3 hours and like 42 shares, but most of them were us making fun of her. So if you looked in the comment section, hundreds of comments. I scanned the whole thing. 2 positives. That's it. 2 people.
That's funny.
She is a joke. She is a joke.
Kind of is. And I think it would be different if she actually was the female version of Senator Sanders.
Not even close.
No. The only one that really comes close that's running for president, I think, is Tulsi. Outside of that, the only other person that comes close is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Because, you know,
people need to stop telling her to run. People keep saying Alexandria needs to run. She needs to be 35. So let's just stop. Okay. Exactly. She's been in office for 2 months. We need to just, there is hero worship going on with her.
There is.
100%.
And
it's gross.
It kind of is. And I'll be honest, I totally love her. I totally feel her on some things. There's some things I wanted to have an understanding about. Like, unfortunately, I don't think she's made a strong enough statement on Venezuela. I don't think even that Senator Sanders has made a strong enough statement on Venezuela. And, like, it's important to not have hero worship and actually call people out where they need to be called out. But, again, that's the focus on policy over identity, right? Like, that's me saying, okay, I love Sanders, but I see he has problems with this. Okay, I love Alexandria, but I know she has problems with this. So, and to be fair, Venezuela, what's happening there and what we're doing there is a really complicated issue. But what I love about, like, the whole Venezuela thing, and actually I want to talk about Howard Schultz because he's funny to talk about. But, totally random thought that popped in my head. But Venezuela, like, it's really complicated issue to understand, but regardless, the people in Venezuela don't want us to intervene. So we should not intervene. But it's funny because it's okay for other countries to meddle in our election, right?
Sure.
But it's okay for us to meddle in other people's elections. And I personally feel really weird about the whole Russia thing. I think it's kind of made up, as it is, to be frank. If there's anything, there's probably shit with money laundering with Trump's hotels, but that's probably it.
Right. It's completely separate from election.
Exactly.
I had Aaron Mate. Mate. Do you know who that is? On
I don't know.
He's done Real News Network, Democracy Now! He writes for The Nation, and he is literally a ridiculous expert on Russia. And we discuss about that. We discuss Venezuela. We discuss, and he just like fact. And we had a really awesome discussion on that. He is very informative, and we learned a lot, myself and my audience. And, you know, that's the thing. People, it is so completely insulting that they're like, these Facebook ads convince people not to vote for Hillary.
No, it was literally Hillary that convinced people not to vote for Hillary. And honestly, if you want to talk about collusion, here's the collusion, okay? It's with industries buying off politicians so they can rig the election in their favor. That's where the real rigging is going on. It's not with Russia. It's not with that. And honestly, even if it were with Russia, Tulsi Gabbard put forth a paper ballot bill last year that went nowhere.
Hmm?
Don't you think if it had happened, which it didn't, it would have gone somewhere?
Mm-hmm. I think two of the biggest problems we saw with all the election fraud in 2016 would be immensely solved if we had A, open primaries, and B, paper ballots.
Mm-hmm.
If we had open primaries, it wouldn't have mattered a fraction as much that they were switching people's registrations. It wouldn't have mattered that we had over 3 million people in New York City who could not vote for Bernie because they have to register 10 months in advance to switch to Dem to vote that way. And most people didn't know who he was at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And the paper ballots in California, over 3 million of them in boxes and uncounted because they gave them NPP ones, and which they knew weren't valid.
Right.
And unfortunately, people were wearing shirts and buttons and stuff, even though we kept saying, please don't, please don't. And they were giving them particular ballots and they weren't counting. So I think with open primaries and paper ballots. So my thing is, as much as people obsess over, Russia, why aren't we doing anything to, if they have to believe that to do paper ballots, bring it on. But we need paper ballots. We need them.
We need them. And on top of that, so there's talk about, Howard Schultz running, and he's planning on running as an independent to be a spoiler for the general election, right? Because, he's going to get a lot of votes with all the deratioing on Twitter. But, and
he was Hillary Clinton's labor secretary choice.
Yeah. And am I thinking or remembering this correctly? I think he was also in Obama's cabinet, maybe? I don't know if that's...
I'm not sure. I
don't know. I'll have to check that out later. So, ignore that fact, people that watch later on YouTube. 10 of you might actually watch this. But, so, with Howard Schultz running, there's actually even talk about, ranked choice voting for the first time, I think, on, mainstream news outlets or corporate media, basically. Which is awesome that they're talking about it. But why now? Why now? I'm happy because we need ranked choice voting. I think there's at least 5 parties in the U.S. at least. There's right now the Working Families Party, which kind of sucks. And Republican, Democrat. I'd consider Independents a party. There's non-affiliated. There's Movement for a People's Party. So there's at least 5. So we need ranked choice voting because it's fair.
There'd be a lot less vote shaming as well.
Exactly. Oh, and there's the Green Party. How the hell did I forget the Green Party?
I was going to say, I think you're leaving someone out.
One. And then there's, the Libertarians, right? So, come on. It's well past time we need these things. And, I'm glad these things are being talked about. And I'm glad, that Trump said on the State of the Union, socialism is not the future of the Democratic Party or the country or whatever he said. I watched it all, but I don't want to watch it again because I don't want to watch it again. But,
how much of a threat are we that he felt the need to say that? It's pretty freaking hilarious.
It's pretty clear that we're a big threat.
So now the neolibs are faced with this. Do we cheer for Trump? What should we do? Sorry, assholes. You can either say, yes, socialism will never come to fruition, and then you agree with Trump, or you suddenly say, no, yes, it will, asshole, and you agree with us.
Exactly. And actually, I want to talk about that a second, the whole agreeing with Trump thing. So, there have been times during his administration where he's actually done the right thing. It's been very few.
TPP was the first one.
Right. TPP was one. Obviously, didn't really create another good thing, but it was still a good thing that he did that.
Mm-hmm.
The wanting, I think he said, I want to pull out of Syria. What's Syria he wanted to pull out of?
Until he does it, I'm not going to give credit, but yeah, I mean, that is a good first step.
Right, like him saying that is good. And then you had all of these people, some that I even know, that said, oh, we shouldn't be doing that. So what, you want to stay in the country forever? Like we are staying in Afghanistan right now, potentially forever? Like,
that's when you break out the photos of the little babies who have no arms anymore and things like that.
Exactly. And
that's privileged as fuck to say we shouldn't pull out of anywhere.
It is. And honestly, it creates more problems in those countries. And it creates hatred toward America, again.
Absolutely.
Which I know every country that we're involved with loves us for being there.
Oh, yeah.
And handling their problems. And I know we love it too as well.
Oil.
Yeah.
Money.
Mm-hmm. And the military-industrial complex. And honestly, the campaign-industrial complex, if you want to call it that. Or even the campaign finance system, which is, in layman terms, what I'm talking about, I guess. But the point is, socialism is going to come to this country. And it's going to come to this country. Well, it's already here. Actually, yeah, it's been here for a really fucking long time. Because, like, when Trump said all of that, right? Well, the military is a socialist thing. The post office, roads, as the fire department, which it wasn't always, but still. Like,
people need to start giving definitions. If you're, stop saying it's communism when it's socialism and start giving, look, don't look it up. Tell me what socialism is. You don't even fucking know. So stop.
Exactly.
Like, it's this booga booga, like, you know, like this like monster, like, ooh. Like,
honestly, I feel like what the right sees is just like money flying out the window. Flying. In reality, we have that now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have that now. And we're getting jacked for it. We're getting jacked. Like, my healthcare sucks. I would love to move to Canada, but honestly, I hate the cold. So I don't want to move to Canada. But I would love to move to Canada for their healthcare. And when people talk about like all these wait lines, like honestly, if I were to call my primary doctor tomorrow, I know I could not get a same day appointment. It would probably be in like 2 or 3 weeks.
A lot of that is total and complete bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, we have enough practitioners and doctors and surgeons that would not be the case. Mm-hmm. You are literally talking from privatization of insurance company and switching that. That is it. That's mm-hmm. it. Period. Mm-hmm. It's only going to affect what we pay. What does that have to do with, I mean, like, I work insurance. I've worked in insurance for 10 years. I don't fear losing my job for that because it still needs to be processed. It still needs to transition. People just fear like, oh, our taxes are going to go up, and stop. Just stop. No.
Yeah. Because it all weighs out, right? Because like right now you have the monthly deductible, you have your copays, and all of that just transfers elsewhere.
And it's actually going to save us money because there's going to be a cap on things that does not exist right now.
Exactly. And I want people to understand that. And honestly, that socialism is not scary. And truth be told, really what most people who are talking about socialism, and well, people think that are socialists, like, are actually not. Like, in reality, because the Overton window has shifted so far to the right due to corporate Democrats giving in to Republican demands and not actually standing on principle, people like AOC and Bernie or Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar or any other person that you can think of, even myself or maybe, I don't know, maybe not me. I don't think me. But, like, they're actually seen as radical when in actuality they're moderate Democrats.
Yeah.
And people like Joe Manchin and Elizabeth Warren, arguably, are actually Republican.
Yeah. Well, she was Republican until
Exactly.
96.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people want to say vote blue no matter who. Well, look at all the scandals going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
They all have a D next to their name.
Exactly.
I
And
mean,
yeah.
that's what happens when you let parties supersede if we voted person, not party, we wouldn't be in this clusterfuck.
No.
But people are so devout to this letter, which has done nothing for us. Better than Trump is not good enough. That is not good enough.
It isn't. And I feel like I don't like Trump. I have no desire for him to be president another 4 years. That actually scares me. But I really worry that the Democratic Party elite have not learned that it's not about identity, it's about policy. And even
They
so,
haven't learned.
I don't think they have. And
not a bit.
And also I think, like, unfortunately, we have to realize that, like, I'm white, you're white. I think, like, we have to realize that, unfortunately or fortunately, there's a little bit of privilege that might go into our vote that we don't really realize in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm proud of the way I voted in the 2016 general election. Like, I have no, like, qualms. Like, I voted for Jill Stein. It didn't sway the election, and honestly, if you want,
I wrote Bernie in, so
like, yeah. And I think if, like, you want to lay blame on someone, you could blame the libertarian who took more of the vote. Then,
or you could blame the 80 million who stayed home because they were that uninspired.
Exactly.
There's getting a calculator, and people don't do that.
No.
They'd rather vote shame the people who actually did exercise democracy by going out and voting, rather than the people who stayed home, because they really, first of all, the news for weeks was like, there's a 98% chance that Hillary will win. Well, I don't like her, so I guess I don't need to vote for her because it's a sure thing.
Right.
I didn't like her. So they were like, well, they're saying she's going to win anyway. I'm not going to go vote for her.
Right.
That's what it came down to. And then they accepted no responsibility for that. Exactly. Well, trust me, if they said it was 50-50, a lot of them would have come out and voted.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I feel like the second that Bernie seceded to her during the primary or the convention, it was done. I knew Trump was going to win. Yeah. I just knew it. And it even given all the bad that has happened, I probably wouldn't change my vote.
I wouldn't.
And
my one vote was not that powerful.
Exactly.
Pennsylvania still would have lost even with our 2 votes.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sacrifice. Like, there are people from my Bernie campaign office who were devastated because they sold their soul at the last minute to vote for her because they were scared of Trump. And she didn't win anyway. And they have to live with that. Yeah. I wasn't going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
There was no chance. I was not going to do that.
I didn't. I thought about it for a second. But then I was like, no, this is just not. I can't do what Bernie did. And truth be told, I actually wish he had walked out of the DNC convention and gone and stood by Jill Stein.
I knew he wasn't going to do that, and there's several reasons. And I've interviewed Jeff Weaver, who's his campaign manager of 32 years. I knew he wasn't going to do that. Number one, because Hillary actually started agreeing to some items on our platform, which never would have come to fruition if he would have done that. Furthermore, because of the pull she has in government, he would have been the laughingstock. He would have went from he would have went from the most popular senator to being committing political suicide and having to retire. He never would have, pushed. He has a lot of bipartisan support. He pushes so many things and achieves so many things because even Republicans respect him.
Right.
And
they definitely do.
With him. That would have ended. He also, look, would she have had that crown taken away and he'd be nominee then? No, not a chance. Yeah. He would have been a laughingstock. He would have been a sore loser. He would have been, a conspiracy theorist. He would have been crazy Bernie. Yeah. All that happened. And people need to put in perspective that he's the only person who has ever been in that situation and who will ever be in that situation. There is a lot that went on behind the scenes that people don't know about. When Debbie Wasserman Schill was forced to step down, Bernie did that. He said, I will not endorse her unless, and gave things, and one of them was that DWS had to step down. That was Bernie. People don't realize that. He wasn't just like, okay, no. He said, you're going to do this, you're going to raise the minimum wage, you're going to do free college. She agreed to it, to both those things and stuff like that. This wasn't just him rolling over. This was him saying, look, I know this is going to do nothing but backfire on me. And if you watched him, the second he said, here, he turned around and he walked out. Like he didn't even stay and clap or anything. He turned and him and Jane just walked right out the door. His heart was broken.
It was a really hard moment to watch. And
I was there.
It was hard.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. We all just cried, thousands of us. We just cried and cried because to hear those words, it was like all the work we did. There were thousands of us in over 100-degree weather marching miles every day, screaming, hell no, DNC, we won't vote for Hillary. And it didn't matter.
Yeah, it was... I was there 1.5 days, despite living essentially in Philadelphia. But, and I was there on one day where I actually got stung by a jellyfish, and I had to go to the hospital in the morning, and then I was looped up on Benadryl all day, which was fine.
Where did you get stung by a jellyfish?
At the beach in the ocean. I fell off my board and... I got stung by a jellyfish.
Oh, I thought you meant at Occupy DNC. I was like, what?
No. But I got stung by a jellyfish and was looped up on Benadryl and EpiPen all day. But, it was hard. It was hard. And I guess I just hope that moving on, not to say, onward together or anything, because I don't think I want to be onward together with some of the people on that side until they actually come to our side. But moving on, I want to figure out a way to bring those people in without detracting from the policy and the issues that matter, and an issue of importance that actually no one's talking about that I care a lot about, which is legalizing sex work. But that's a whole issue for maybe another politician to bring up at some point in time, which would be amazing if they actually started talking about that. But I guess we all have to move to Reno.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like we're moving to Vegas.
But honestly, I'm not going to move to Vegas because it's too dry for me.
Yeah, I can't take the heat.
It's just dry heat that I don't do well in. But I love heat. just not dry heat. But yeah, I just want people to come into the movement. And in saying that, I don't want it to be co-opted, but I already see it being co-opted. And like, there are reasons that I identify as a progressive, and the reason is policy over identity. Because that's what brought all of these people that went from Bernie to vote for Trump. But people don't understand that, because people think, like, okay, like, well, Trump is a bigot. He's racist, a xenophobe, a transphobe, homophobe, Islamophobe. You name it, phobe. He is.
Mm-hmm.
But he was running a populist issue-based campaign.
And he was anti-establishment.
Exactly, and we're still there. We're still there. I know that there are some things that have changed. Like, I think the general populace is more, I don't want to say sensitive to identity issues, but sensitive to policy that affects people of color, or policy that hurts different minorities and different minority groups. Like, one that doesn't really have to do with a policy exactly is redlining, because it exists. And I was listening to something the other day, I forget what, but they were saying, actually, maybe it was Elizabeth Warren yesterday, during her speech or whatever that we were talking about earlier, how, like, in the 50s or the 40s, there was like a 26% wage, or 26% gap of people of color who lived out in white neighborhoods between, like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, black people or people of color didn't really live out in white neighborhoods at a rate of 26%. Well, now that's actually apparently grown to 30%. Well, that's not good, right? And that has to do with redlining, but it honestly also has to do with wages, which is a policy issue. So this is everything on some level, depending on the research that one does, you can always trace something back to policy. So redlining itself might not have to do with the wage that someone makes, because it doesn't. But that doesn't mean that the pay that someone receives can help people get out of that area, because it can. And that's why we need to actually get more people elected, like Alexandria. And honestly, I say more specifically like her, because I think, fortunately or unfortunately, she's basically the leader in the House. And honestly, when Bernie's not here, could become the actual leader of the so-called movement if it actually survives past 5 more years, which I worry about. But, and honestly, unfortunately, fortunately, she can talk about things that Bernie can't.
Because she's a woman of color.
Exactly. And like, even you can even talk about Danica Roem. She can talk about things that Alexandria can't, because Danica is a trans woman. I think in maybe, God, I forget. I know she was elected in 2017, but
yeah, I forget what state.
Maybe, I want to say Virginia. I think I'm wrong.
Yeah,
though.
I think you're right. I think it was Virginia. I think so.
Okay. Well, like, she was elected there, but she can talk about trans issues because she's a trans woman.
Mm-hmm.
But policy helps trans women. It helps trans men. And even Alexandria recognizes that. And I want people to realize everything comes back to a policy, if not directly, maybe indirectly. So I don't know. That's more like a side topic. I just want to like figure out a way to actually get there rather than just like be like, oh, but she's a woman, so we like her. Mm-hmm. Which actually, can we talk about the age thing of Bernie for a second? Like the ageist comments, he shouldn't run because of his age. Did you know that Nancy Pelosi is 78?
Yeah.
Like, well, she shouldn't have run for the Speaker of the House, right? Exactly.
People are like RBG, you know. Oh, well, a lot of people don't even realize or care that Bernard's brother, Larry, is 83 and still serves in the UK Green Party. Mm-hmm. He's a rep.
Yeah.
He's 83. Dude, mm-hmm. Bernie's across country doing 3 rallies a day, walks to work every day. Like, don't give me that shit. Like, you're just ageist and you're looking for a reason.
Exactly.
That's all it is. You're looking for a reason. Mm-hmm. And he gets sneezed the wrong way. I mean, it literally does not matter what he does. He will be criticized. He will be hated on. And, you know, I always say to these people, like, do you think the people of, you know, the Yemeni people asked him what his age was when he went in, you know, when he passed a bill to save them? Do you think that the people of Amazon and Disney and all of them asked him if he was Jewish before they accepted their raises? Like,
right.
Do you think that, you know, people, they also asked if he was a Democrat before they accepted? This shit is so pointless. It is, you know, it is just distraction. That's all it is. Just distraction on shit that does not matter.
Absolutely. And it's like the whole, so like, all right, like, let's talk about then, so like Tulsi Gabbard. She was on, I think, it may have been Morning Joe. I don't watch it. I just watch clips of things. But she was on Morning Joe, I think, last week, where she was being pressed on Assad being like I think she was being asked more or less, like, is Assad an enemy of the U.S.? It's not really about whether he's an enemy or a friend. That's like the framing of the question is all wrong. Okay, it's what Israel, or Assad is Israel, right? I'm like getting no Syria. Thank you. Like is what Syria is trying to do, is that good for the U.S. or is that not good for the U.S.? And that's where the framing should have been, but it wasn't there. And she was smeared during that entire thing. So the thing is, people are going to smear people like Tulsi and like Sanders for reasons where for things they don't need to be smeared for. Like, there are legitimate criticisms of these people. A huge one for Tulsi is her vote on bringing more refugees in. She chose to vote no.
And her vote for the $770 or $770 billion war budget that Trump proposed.
Exactly.
Every single Dem voted yes, at least one. Mm-hmm. There's an independent named Bernard Sanders who voted no all 3 times. Exactly. So yeah, I'm glad he's not a Democrat when it comes to shit like that.
Exactly. And it comes down to, it doesn't matter. It's, are you doing the right thing or are you doing the wrong thing? And that doesn't mean that we can't talk about policy, or not policy. We can't talk about identity issues that matter, because we can. Like, a weird one for me with Tulsi is she's a surfer, and that kind of tells certain things for me, which sounds odd. But for me, like, as a surfer, and I feel like there's like this idea where you can like figure out, you're very in tune with human nature and you can see things that other people can't see, and you're able to like maneuver certain things, and it's very spiritual thing, and it sounds really amorphous, like I'm being a religious nut, but I am not. It's just like, it's a thing, but like that whole, I don't know, what was my point? I am so good at making points today and forgetting them.
Well, you can have a connection in other things besides politics.
Right. And I guess like the thing is like you can talk about identity where it matters and where it's important. But bring it back to policy. So like let's say Kamala Harris is asked the question, you're a black woman. How are you going to help black people? That brings it back to policy, but you'll never hear Jake Tapper ask that kind of a question, will you? Like,
not gonna happen.
That's the thing. Like, I think people like you and me are very privy to like the framing of questions, but most people aren't. And I want to make sure that people understand like the framing of questions matters moving forward.
I think they do understand it, and that's why they're so careful. They're not going to ask something that's going to make them look bad.
Right. Especially Jake Tapper he's on CNN? No, MSNBC. God, I don't even know.
I'm not sure, but all of them are atrocious. And,
yeah.
You know, they're giving just softball after softball because they don't want to confront them on something that's too intense.
Right.
Because they know that clip will be played over and over and over. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'm still waiting for the other people to have their, you know, town hall.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But it won't happen. But Howard Schultz is going to have one. That is going to be the funniest fucking thing ever. I just can't wait to see, like, all these video memes where, like, a stupid meme is, like, graphed after he says something. And then another one, and then another one, and another, and, like, a video.
People go to Starbucks every damn day. Stop supporting his ass. I've never bought a coffee there in my life, and I'm okay with that.
The only thing I will say that I have gotten there is tea, because I'm a tea person, and there used to be one right outside my job at Penn, so it was really important that I had tea. I have, like, one staple on my lunch break, and that's getting tea, because if I don't, I will literally not make it through my day. I will literally be sitting at my computer asleep for about an hour. But, so, that sometimes is my go-to. But now I've pretty much gone to Wawa because it's cheaper. But I'm not at Penn anymore either. So. But anyway. Like, people are like, Howard Schultz are a fucking joke. No one's gonna vote for a billionaire. Actually, let me rephrase that. The only ones that are gonna vote for a billionaire are going to be billionaires. And I think maybe, unfortunately, some Republicans. Just because I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding about even what a marginal tax rate is. Because there's been talk about that. And I can only say that because my mom works in taxes, and I asked her to explain to me what a marginal tax rate was, and she couldn't do it. She had to look it up. So I think, like, there's a lot of misunderstanding of what that is, and I think there's a lot of, I don't want to say, what am I trying to say, like hate, maybe? Or, like, hate pushed on that idea by Fox News and people that people on the right are friends with. So they don't understand it, and they think, oh my God, my money's gonna go. I'm gonna be broken, homeless on the street. Ah. And in reality, they're actually not. They're gonna be more than likely helped by it. So I think those are the only people he gets. But I still worry about people like him choosing to run as an independent. Because I don't once again, I think the goal, more or less, in 2020 should be to not get Trump elected. But I say that with a small disclaimer every single time, because to me, it really depends on what the DNC does. But I also we don't know. The election really nothing has really begun yet outside of elections. Not everyone has even announced. And I feel like at this rate, there's like 20 people in already. I just found out about Marianne Williamson, I think.
Is she the spiritual advisor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll pass.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass on that too, to be honest.
When you're spiritual advisor to people like Oprah, you sound a little privileged, and I'm gonna pass. I don't believe in I'm a firm believer in separation of church and state, and I don't want to hear spiritual shit.
Yeah, it's not really. I think for me, like, I'm an atheist, but like I'm a little bit of a Taoist and an existentialist kind of a thing, and I feel like I'm a little bit like of a transcendentalist too. So like that's my niche, kind of, which sounds like a very weird niche put together. But like there's spiritual and then there's being a nut job. I think she's a nut job.
Well, and plus, I mean, we can't hate on Trump for never doing anything politically and jumping in the race if we're going to support someone like that. I mean,
exactly.
It's hypocrisy. You either support people new to politics or you don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. And totally random and related. Actually, no, not related. Not related at all. But I want to like talk about Bernie for 1 second and how people call him racist, which I know we've talked about, but I want to mention how he's not at all, because I think, as you and I both know, he, in the 60s, marched with MLK on Washington, and he chained himself, put like he handcuffed himself to a black woman who was being arrested, saying, "You cannot arrest her because you cannot arrest her. We are handcuffed. Or if you arrest her, you arrest me too." And that's not... I can see where people would say that's him, like, trying to put himself in the spotlight, but he was a college student then.
He wasn't even in politics.
No one. Okay. He was no one. He's not involved in politics. And he just happened to get his picture taken of. Wow, my grammar is really bad today. He just happened to get a picture taken of himself, chained to this woman. And it got printed in the newspaper. Well, I mean, if that's the case, then, like, let's say 40 years down the road, I'm someone in the House of Representatives, right? Like, and there's a picture of me next to a Hispanic person when I was 10 printed. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of bullshit. Like, I think we have to realize that people are not inherently people are not racist necessarily, and people aren't racist just because they're white. People can be unintentionally racist and unintentionally ableist, but that doesn't mean that they're racist or ableist. They can just not know what they're doing. And I think that's where we need to have a conversation and where things need to be understood. It's just how to have that conversation without forgetting it's about policy is the important thing. But that being said, Bernie is still not racist. And I think in the 80s, he was even for LGBTQIA plus equality, which, I mean, is another issue that's really important to me just because of the house that I grew up in. But like, it's still, it bothers me when people attack, say, Tulsi on that issue. The whole like her past with like supporting conversion therapy because she grew up in a socially conservative household. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, my mom's a log cabin Republican. She still won't say to me that she's gay. Does that make me homophobic? But like, and on top of the whole like attacks for Tulsi about the anti-LGBT stuff, she came around on that issue before Hillary Clinton and before Barack Obama. Bernie was 30 years her successor. I mean, obviously, Tulsi's only 36, but I think she's 36 anyway.
I think she's 37 now. Oh. Yeah.
Okay. Well, either way, it's just some of these attacks are kind of ridiculous. And honestly, the more they attack, the more I think that people like them. And it's only going to hurt in the long run. So that's really it. But anyway, I feel like we talked a lot about a lot of stuff, and I don't know if there's much else to really talk about.
No, I think we had a broad discussion.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I guess thanks for joining me on my little fun, stupid show called the Inform Forum, where hopefully will become somewhat regular, but I kind of doubt that will ever happen. So I hope that you guys watch this video and feel free to subscribe. I do not have a Patreon account because I don't post frequently enough to have one. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. And
yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you. And we'll stop recording. Bye, guys.
Bye. Run, Bernie, run.
Yes, please. Oh my God, please run, Bernie, run. Because honestly, if you do not run, honestly, I am scared of shit.
Yeah.
Honestly.